Hi guys, so we have Michelle here today. She teaches in RMDY Academy the Anatomy and Physiology component. Now, many of you know that Peter was my lecturer when I was at college, and I often say, he was one of my favorites, but in truth, Michelle has always been the favorite, and he knows it. But Michelle taught me anatomy and physiology, and it was the way in which she taught that it just made really all of the body come to life. And it was the way that I absorbed it. And it wasn't just the mainstream stuff that she would teach, about cells. It takes a real talent for somebody to make learning about cells intriguing and fascinating, but it was often the fringe content. It was the little things that she wove in about even energy and frequency and the spirit and the human body that to me, it really just made it come alive. And in truth, she was one of the first people. I was enrolled initially actually in nutrition, which can anyone imagine me as a nutritionist? I don't think so. And you said to me, you sort of took me aside in a class of 30 and you said, are you sure nutrition's what you want to do? She said, it's great, but, you said even naturopathy, homeopathy, I don't know, just putting it out there. And funny then that I would have Peter for my next round of anatomy and physiology, and he just sort of took that baton and really pulled it over the line. But Michelle, I would love to know, what about your current anatomy and physiology course that you teach in RMDY Academy? How is that different to other courses? Because a lot of people obviously find it dry, difficult to understand. They're just ticking that box. But why do you like teaching anatomy and physiology, and how do you do it differently?
Well, I am super passionate about natural medicine, all natural medicine, and I'm super passionate about the human body. I think it's magical. And because of my background in genetics originally, and then going into education, and then finding my way to natural medicine, it was a journey because I needed to go through my own healing process. So I've always loved anatomy, but natural medicine just took it to another level for me. And there's nothing out there anywhere that I'm aware of that teaches anatomy and physiology for complementary and alternative medicine practitioners. It is, as you said, very dry, but no one puts in all the different aspects of natural medicine into anatomy, so it makes it relevant. And that's what I used to teach when I taught you, with my words, not the actual lectures. And now I've had the blessed opportunity to put it into a lecture form for everyone to be inspired as much as what I've been inspired by natural medicine and the human body.
So when you were teaching in other universities, and it's something about you, I don't know how many degrees you've got. I know you've got a lot of degrees, and it's not something that I actually love that you did all of that only to realize that the pieces of paper don't matter. Like, how many people go and they want the piece of paper to feel important. How many degrees do you actually have?
I have 4 degrees, but I have many diplomas on top of that as well.
Yeah. And so we do that, right? We just sort of collect them and learning constantly. And then I also love about RMDY Academy and the way that you teach, you engage people in learning in a way that really no other schools do. Tell me a bit about that in terms of learning, like for people with dyslexia. I know that you very purposely design all of your lectures and your slides so that people actually learn and absorb. And I guess that's how we went with our homeopathy content. We didn't want it to be this didactic, all right, we teach, we spew all this information at you, and then you regurgitate it back and we tick that box and say, tick, you've done that. How do you find actually like learning and integration and the way that you approach it works?
Well, because there are many ways that people learn. You can either be audible or written or kinesthetic, or you can be a combination of the few of them. I know for me, I'm a kinesthetic person. I need to move. So I was one of those kids in school that used to tap pens and got in trouble a lot. And then I went and got a Bachelor of Education and thought I'd go in and change the system as a teacher to help students. But instead that didn't happen. I changed my journey. So how I teach is predominantly for how I need to teach.
Yeah.
So that's, and I say that in my lectures anyway, because I have a form of dyslexia, but everyone does in some way. But I see things differently to some people. So it's just a right-brained dominance. So we put the writing on the right side because it's our left brain that works with letters and numbers more than our right brain. And then I put the pictures on the left-hand side, so your right brain is able to pick up on the information subconsciously while you're learning. So you don't have to work as hard to learn the information, because there's a lot of information in anatomy and physiology, and it's hard slog. So that's one trick. And then using color. The brain works with color, with our photoreceptors, not just black and white. And so it makes it easier to present for me, and it makes it a lot easier for most people to learn with.
I mean, I even remember in class, when you were teaching us, and I used to do the night classes of anatomy and physiology. So I'd come in at night and you would have the orange incense, the oils burning, and you'd say, all right, guys, breathe it in, because right now we're making memories while I'm teaching you. And then when we would come to do our exams, you would get the orange, diffuser going. You say, all right, all of that memory recall, all that we've gone through, we're trying to access these parts of the brain. I've got a good memory. I remember a lot of things. I do. And another thing, when you were coming and you were designing the curriculum for RMDY Academy, I mean, you sort of already had it underway, and then I serendipitously, contacted you and said, look, I'm looking for an A&P course and I want it to be phenomenal and outside of the box, and you said, oh, well, I'm actually working on the textbook as we speak, so I'd be happy to do it. And throughout the journey of your creating it, you sometimes message me and say, look, I've got all of this data, all of this research. And yes, it would be considered fringe. You say, I would never have been allowed to teach this in the mainstream unis. And I know that you and Peter, when we've had conversations together, you guys were quite under the thumb with what you were actually allowed to put out there. Even if it was true, you were not necessarily allowed to share everything that was known. And we're talking, CIA documents, that are available for public, consumption. And yet a lot of people just do not look. They do not understand that there are people in the world that understand the concepts that you are teaching, that they have known this about humans, about consciousness, creation, our bodies, really everything that underpins this universe. So in this course, have you added a lot of it in? How do you feel about what you put in there?
Well, I always run it past you first to see if it was appropriate. Yes, I have added a lot of things that you will never find in other anatomy and physiology courses anywhere that I'm aware of anyway.
Yeah.
Especially when it looks at frequency, the human biofield, and everything is backed up with peer-reviewed research articles that I've got links there for everyone to be able to do their own research, because it's now time to tell the truth.
It is.
Everything.
Yeah. Amen. And how do you see, I guess, just on a human level, where we're headed? I know that you are a very tapped in and very wise woman. You've definitely said things to me over the years that you could not have possibly known, about me or my life. And you saw it long before, it would have been something anyone else would say. How do you feel if the world starts to learn the truth? Like, what does that mean for humanity if we understand how our bodies work and how human consciousness works? What does that mean for the rest of the world?
It means humanity will heal. And that's what we want for our babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it for the babies. Yeah. So, Michelle, what would you say to somebody who is interested in homeopathy, has a bit of a passion for the human body, but is wondering, am I smart enough to actually learn all these concepts? What would you say to them if they wondered, am I smart enough to actually go through this course?
Absolutely. And why I say absolutely is that I feel everyone from tiny little children should learn anatomy and physiology regardless. And so the way that I've put the course together is to give the information for those who have already done something like that and may have knowledge of anatomy, but also those who have never done it before. I've made sure that the curriculum is done for down here to up here. And I want everyone to learn the vehicle they're in. If you don't understand what you're walking around in, then you're not going to be able to heal effectively.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, to think that we go to school for 12 years and we learn all sorts of things. I mean, I was learning about Nazi Germany, right? And great, cool. But to not learn about our actual human body, that like this vessel that we are in for life, the health of which will dictate so much of my future happiness and that of my children, that come through. It is it's wild that we do not actually prioritize people really understanding fundamentally the truth. And I guess we have to underline that, because what we're taught in human biology, I don't know, 101 at school, it's not the truth, really.
It's very minimal what we're taught. But not only that, it's empowering to know how to understand what is out of balance in your body, and not be fearful and feeling like you have to go to somebody else to get the answers, that at least you've got an underlying foundation of knowing what could be happening.
Yeah. If we were to have like a lofty goal, it would obviously be that we get to the point where, I always said my goal with the homeopathy is to bring healing back into the home, that the mothers know, that the fathers know what to do when the kids are unwell. And you just imagine, we've got grandparents who signed up to do our course, and they have signed up because they want to be there if their grandchild is going through anxiety or depression as a teenager, or if they've got endometriosis, and they want to be the one for their family to be able to teach them how to heal. Whether they step into it as a career or not, that's what they want to do for their family and the people around them. And I think that feeling of actually having medicine that helps, like truly helps, it's such a relief, because then you go through life and you can hear, people's sad stories and they're struggling, but you've actually got a tool that can help. You're not just a listening ear. Sure, a listening ear is really important, and to be with someone in that, but to actually say, hey, I actually know what could heal your endometriosis. You don't need to be in pain every month. Let me help you. And I know I love it. We run a bush school on the property, and the kids sometimes come up to the front door and the teacher will walk them up and just say, hey, Sally has a UTI. Do you have anything to give her? And I'm like, oh, I'll be right back. And I can go in and, like a real medicine woman, I can make this little girl up a remedy and bring it up and just say, take that, and the power that you feel in being able to help somebody. I love that. And it's definitely, say, with the different learning styles and people thinking, I'm not smart enough to do this, or I don't have the business sense or marketing sense or the confidence to actually build a successful practice. I love that in Remedy Academy, we just did things so differently. We did it more as that apprenticeship style, where it's like, look and just follow what we do. And we have dumbed it down to a point that we have medical doctors in our course, and they can be in a tutorial group with a builder or any job, a teacher, a nurse, a hairdresser. We have got people from all walks of life. We've got children, not children, they're 18 years old. They're just young. They're fresh out of school. And they're stepping straight into this course, and everybody seems to be absorbing it in their own perfect way. And I say to the students, if you're not understanding something, I would love to know, because it's a reflection of our teaching, not your learning. And we need to make sure that you can understand what we are saying. So I love that you just have that same simple mindset. Yes, it's incredible complex, sometimes concepts about the human body, and yet we can simplify it.
Of course.
We can use a language that everybody can understand.
And that's what we've done in the Anatomy Physiology anyway. So I have, if you want to call it, dumbed it down. So we've got the real terms, but we've also got everyday layman words, so that you can end up communicating with your clients on a level that they can understand as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. I love that. And so another thing that puts people off study sometimes, they think, oh, I'm not a very good studier. I didn't do well in school. And it's the assessment piece. How do you feel about formal assessments, and is it a reflection of what people actually know?
No. So when I wrote a course, I focused on people learning and being inspired by the learning. The assessment is there to show that they have completed the course or completed each lecture. At the end of the day, Mel, the assessment is not the most important part. It's about learning and understanding the body, frequency, healing, so that we can have a better humanity.
Yeah. Amen. And a lot of the feedback that we've had from the homeopathy students is that because we do not put them under pressure with the formal assessments, they are actually sitting through these lectures to absorb and to integrate the knowledge. And I know that historically for myself and growing up and in school, I am a fantastic regurgitator. I think I'm pretty left brain dominant. I don't know what you'd say, but I could just read something before coming into one of your exams and I could spew it back out onto the page. But in your cases, what I learned and I remembered, it was because the way you taught. But for all of those subjects that I crammed for, I lost that knowledge within weeks of pumping that out on a test. And so when we place that emphasis on the actual integration of knowledge and wisdom, I love seeing that the students, their confidence of like people who never thought they could do this, who truly thought they would just never be able to study something. I'm not academic, they would say.
You don't have to be academic to do AMP the way that we've written it.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what is part of the assessment for this? How have you measured and had people sign off that they have completed the course? What does that look like?
Well, the traditional way of doing assessment a long time ago was to enhance the learning experience, not to make people stressed or to get a grade. So there's no real grades. It's just pass or fail. It's 10 questions for each lecture, and you have the capacity to keep redoing the exam if you need to and learning from it. But at the end of the day, it's about the learning and integration, not about, it's a pass or fail. So it's not like you need a special grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, it's not hard. It's fun. Anatomy's fun, but I'm biased.
I love it. I mean, it's not a statement that you hear very often. Anatomy physiology is fun.
Fun because you live in this. So understanding empowers you to know that, I have, I don't know, a little bit of, like I get eczema. So eczema on my foot, what does that mean? Take my homeopathics, but what else is going on in my body? Yeah. And understanding that I don't need to freak out about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Well, you make it magic. So that is why I agree that it is fun. So we get a lot of people who are coming into homeopathy from other occupations, a lot of them, nurses, we've got doctors, pharmacists, we've got massage therapists. Tell me, with this AMP course, for somebody who says, but I've already done it, right? I've already done the mainstream AMP. Do I have to do it again? Why is this different? Why is it so valuable?
Well, firstly, you will never find an anatomy and physiology course like this anywhere in the world, and I can 100% guarantee that one. Secondly, I've put all modalities into this ANP course. So when you're going through each system of the body, sometimes, so for the endocrine system, for example, there's 3 lectures in the endocrine system. And you will, at the end of it, or even just peppered through the lecture itself, I put acupuncture points, homeopathic remedies, herbs. I even show you how to make a herbal remedy in one of the nervous system ones, which is quite amusing. It's really funny because me trying to do it with the camera is wonderful. So it's very different. You'll never see it, right? So so this is not just for homeopaths, to be fair, how I've written it for all different modalities, whether you are mainstream medicine or natural medicine practitioner. Okay, so you will never see it anywhere, unless someone copies it, obviously.
Yeah. But in that, it is beautiful to have them all woven in such a holistic nature because, even as a homeopath, we love to refer to the acupuncturists as well. And, we see the value in all of these different modalities and the overlap. And then with a lot of the mainstream ANP courses, certainly what's taught to our doctors and our nurses, it's a very mechanistic style sort of built to allow for the prescribing of drugs and the surgeries that they would be, sort of a part of in that mainstream model. Whereas when you're learning AMP from the holistic viewpoint, obviously that looks very different.
It does. And I've also included the mainstream pharmaceutical drugs in it as well, so that people can see how they work together. Because it is important to understand it from a holistic point of view, not just from an alternative medicine point of view. So it's a combination of everything.
I love it. As a homeopath, we often aren't as concerned, with, say, blood test results or gut testing or allergic, testing, those sorts of things. We would look at them, but it's certainly not something that we send people out, to often get these labs and testings, because we know when we recalibrate the field, all of that changes anyway. But with AMP and with our understanding of medical terms, when we are graduating as homeopaths, how important do you think it is that we are really up to scratch in our field, understanding all of the mechanisms, of the body, of the kidneys, how they function, how the bowel works, in order for us to, I guess, be leaders, in medicine? The way that we would like to have this revolution go is that we really are restored to like a really authoritative sort of voice in medicine. So how important do you think it is for us to learn these things?
Vitally important, because we need to participate in a world where natural medicine is not always regarded as a pinnacle of health practitioners. So if we know the lingo and we also understand the holistic nature, we can sit on par with the mainstream medical system. And so we don't look as woo-woo as what people think natural medicine is, because it's not.
Yeah. And in all your time researching, you're an avid researcher, a scientist, all of the things, what do you find about frequency medicine? What's your opinion on frequency medicine and like homeopathy?
Well, in one of my lectures, and I will say this verbatim, I said, this lecturer, mark my words, in 5 years, frequency is where it's at for all of healing. So that isn't actually said in one of my lectures. And that's how I do feel. Frequency is the key to everything. Like everything is frequency.
And why is that? As a scientist and someone who understands the human body so deeply, why is that? Why do you think the frequency is the future of medicine?
Because that's how we heal the deep fundamental aspects of what is out of ease or dis-ease. Because everything else is the pinnacle of that energy that we need to bring back into balance. And whether that is homeopathy paired with something else like acupuncture, it doesn't matter. It's all frequency. Even the pharmaceutical drugs are working on a frequency aspect of the body. It's all about frequency. But homeopathy works at the core, the deep core of what's going on.
I know you sent me a video probably years ago now, but it was just of the sound healing and watching, I think, the regeneration of bone and cartilage in the knee. And it's fascinating. I think if people knew what was really going on in the world, what they were really capable of achieving with something like even sound healing, of course, homeopathy, but these other modalities, yes, I think, yes, we're sort of blowing the lid on what's already happening, and we're just wanting to stay on that leading edge.
And remember, that's all in the Anatomy and Physiology course. I've put that all in for people to continue their research and get excited about the healing of humanity.